All right. Hello, everybody. Contrary to what my nameplate there might say, this is not Paul Mickley, but Eric Landesfine. I'm doing a webinar. It's my first webinar ever on West Coast rockfish techniques. I'm going to be talking about quite a few technical things throughout this in regards to breaking down areas, finding the right structure, and how to go about finding the fish that you actually want to catch. And I'm sure that at some point everybody's going to have some kind of questions. Maybe not everyone, but some of you will have questions. There should be a little toolbar there that says Q&A. And if you find something that you have a question about during my while I'm talking, you can just click on there and type in your question. I may not get to it immediately, but I will get to it before the end of the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, I will be taking some questions from you guys regarding anything that I might not have covered correctly. So I see quite a few of you already here. I'm going to be making a mention about the questions and answers again in a few minutes once I see that significantly more people have joined. Before I get started on my slideshow here, I'd like to talk about the fact that basically what we're going to be talking about today is how to go out and find your own rockfish spots, identify areas that are likely to have fish, and then figure out how to go about catching them. So let's get started. We're going to always start out with prospecting for new spots. That means going to an area we've never been to, or maybe going to an area we've fished our entire lives and looking at it in a different manner. The first step in that is going to be to identify a large area that has the characteristics of a rockfish spot. By that I mean an area that has the right depth for rockfish to be at and some structure that the rockfish might associate to. Tons of spots up and down the coast, and this applies wherever you're going. We're going to be taking a closer look at the topography and using that information to identify likely areas. And then in this process of prospecting, we're going to choose several high percentage areas within that bigger area that we can actually investigate in the water. And then we're going to execute a thorough scan of the area once we're on the water. That's a lot of words, but I'm going to show you some slides here that are going to make sense about this. The first spot we're looking at here is this is the Santa Monica Bay, just north of Palos Verdes, between Palos Verdes and you guys can see my mouse there in the lower right-hand corner and Point Dume in the upper right-hand. There's a lot of great rockfish areas in the Santa Monica Bay, but there's so many great rockfish areas, and anybody looking to go out and take advantage of them on any given day is going to be pretty much at a loss. And I know that I've had some friends over the years give me some pointers as to, hey, you can go to this spot or that spot and catch some fish. And I really appreciate the help they've given me. But by doing that, you're really limiting yourself as to where you can catch fish, because if they're not biting on that handful of spots, you're probably not going to catch anything. In the old days, we were stuck with having very basic technology. I mean, when I first started fishing rockfish, we didn't even have a GPS. We just went from land bearings that we'd learned from sport boats who had fished these spots over the years, and then relying on our fish finder. You know, in comes GPS, the ability to save spots and go back to them. And now Navionics has this software available where not only can you look at the charts with very detailed contour information, you can record your own sonar charts and upload them to their website. And within a few days, those recordings will be available for download back to your chip and give you an updated view of the area that you looked at. So what we're looking at right here is, like I said, an overview of the Santa Monica Bay. You can see that this is the continental shelf if you follow my mouse. And there's a little protrusion here in the shelf, and then everything else out here is very deep water. While there are a lot of rockfish spots in the Santa Monica Bay, I'm using this word as an example, and I hope if anybody that fish up there a lot. I'm not trying to burn anybody's spot, and I'm not giving any specifics about where to fish up there. But as you can see, what's circled in red here is this large protrusion of the shelf surrounded by steep canyons, and it's likely to hold rockfish. The steep canyons are indicated by the darker lines that you can see here. The closer the contour lines, the quicker the drop off is. So if you look above that here from the shoreline out, these contour lines are very spaced out. So over the distance of about a mile or two, you might gain several hundred feet of drop off. But in this area right here, you go from probably 300 feet to well over 1,000 feet. In this is the continental shelf dropping off, and here it's even much more drastic. So one of the things that rockfish do is they put themselves into positions where they live their entire lives there in areas where they're likely to have bait fish or forage come to them. And with rockfish and most other species, one of the biggest sources of forage is upwelling of nutrients from deeper water. So they're going to be closer to these edges they're going to be as close as they can be to areas that are delivering food to them. So let me jump ahead here. This is a close-up of the area that I had circled in red. As you can see at the top of the screen and the outside edges here, this is a significant drop-off. If I look here, it's 294 feet, and then within a very short distance, it's 720 feet. So it's a very steep cliff. What that cliff will do is it will cause water to upwell when currents and swells come through. It pushes deep water up shallow, and that deep water carries nutrients that bait fish feed on. Bait fish feed on plankton and other little microorganisms that you name it. Excuse me. So, and the rockfish are going to be wherever their food is. So basically the bait fish orient themselves in a place where they can get the most food, and the rockfish are going to be there to feed on them. This being the Santa Monica Bay, and from what I know of the area, most current and swell comes from the west or northwest. So everything is going to be hitting the bank at this angle on this part of the bank 90% of the time. Sometimes you get a south swell or an uphill current. This end of the bank on the bottom here might be getting some action, but overall we know that most of our weather comes from the northwest, and it's coming down our coast. So this is going to be the area that's going to be hit the hardest by any type of current and upwelling. So that's the most likely area to hold fish, because it's the most likely area to hold the most bait. And an interesting side note is when the yellows were biting in the Santa Monica Bay a couple of years ago during that deep water bite we had, almost all the fish I caught came off this edge because it was in the path of where the bait and everything was coming from. When looking at this protrusion, the areas that I have in red are the areas that, in my estimation, are the most likely to have fish or hold rockfish. So as you can see, the big reverse C shape here shows everything along the edge of this canyon, and then this area, this straight area here, isolates on the series of high spots or pinnacles that are around this. And there's some other ones outlined here, but you can tell by the contour lines that those are much more sloping because the contour lines are further apart. So you go from 234 feet to 246 feet in that distance, where here you go from 200 to 234 in a shorter distance. And even here it's even a steeper drop off. So those are, while these here are likely to have resident fish that live around these high spots, these outer edges are going to be areas where any of that could be good for rockfish, but no one spot is guaranteed to have them on any given day. So if you were to go out, and this doesn't look so big on the screen, but if I was to go out and try and cover all of this water, and including all this in a single day, it would be almost impossible. Considering you're probably driving around at 2 or 3 miles an hour while you're metering, and you're zigzagging back and forth, and you're stopping and dropping on fish, to cover this entire zone would probably take you a week of 12-hour days. And that's really not what you want to do while you're prospecting for rockfish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the information that I already know about how rockfish act and where the bait is most likely coming from, and I can rule out quite a bit of this water. So based on the fact that I talked about most conditions come from the west or northwest, depending on the orientation of the coast at any given spot, this upper left-hand corner, for lack of a better description, is the most likely area for these fish to be holding. Now, they could just as easily be down at the other end, but I'm making an educated guess here that if I'm new to this area and I don't have any predisposition to where those fish are, I'm going to say this is going to be where I'm going to start. So this is a manageable area that you can search on. I don't remember exactly how big this is based on what I grabbed off the chart, but I'm going to say that this whole span here is less than a couple of miles, which is a manageable chunk. What we're looking at here, or looking for here, is areas that are likely to aggregate fish. And there's a couple of things that I'm seeing that draw my eye. And the first off is this area right here, because there's this indent in the shelf, and this to me looks like a funnel that's going to push up a more concentrated stream of water of upwelling and the associated nutrients, which would be a place that would be likely to aggregate bait fish and the resulting rockfish that follow them. And in areas like this, these rockfish, like I said, they're not living on a pinnacle or associating with a particular piece of structure. It's not like there's a huge sandy bottom and one rock like a sand bass would be on or something. This is all good structure. I mean, all of this entire edge is likely structure. They could be living anywhere around here. So why are they in certain areas and not in others? Is because those are areas that aggregate forage. So based on that, I'm going to try and only, well, let me go back a second. There could be rockfish anywhere along there, but when you look at it, you could say, well, if there's rockfish anywhere along there, they're likely to be here as opposed to there. So this area here with this little steep ledge, 9 times out of 10, if there's rockfish along this entire edge, they're going to be right here. They might also be here, they might also be here, but this is an indicator spot you're looking for. It's the highest percentage spot. If you can find fish there, you're likely to be able to find fish in other spots. So based on what I was saying, I have narrowed my search parameters down farther to say, I'm going to start here with this area that looked the best to me. And I'm going to extend it out because this area, although it's not as dramatic, is facing into the current swell direction. That could also be, anytime you have a point coming out on a bank, it's a likely spot. I didn't go much further below that because if there's fish further down the bank, they'll also be, here's the alpha spot on the bank. This little area from here to here is the most likely area to have bait delivered to it and to have rockfish. In my search, I've also included this pinnacle here. Although it's not the best pinnacle, there's some better ones behind. It's very close to where I'm going to be fishing anyway. So as I go through the day, if I catch some fish here, then I can go and look at those pinnacles that are more towards the center of the bank. Okay, so now this represents a hypothetical course that I would take when exploring the area. I just drew this on my computer screen. This is going to be biased a lot by what I see. My fish finder I have on my boat is a Raymarine ES98, which is ES98 just means a 9-inch screen. They make a bunch of different sizes. But what I'm running is I have a through-hole chirp transducer for the up and down, which gives me a very good image of the bottom. And then I have side vision. There's a lot of different brands out there. Humminbird has one, Mega Imaging. There's all these different things. Lowrance has another. Basically, this allows me to scan what's on the sides of the boat. And when I'm fishing rockfish, I can run this out to 600 or so feet off either side of the boat. So I'm basically, as I'm driving, I'm covering 1,200 feet, or approximately, what is that, 4 football fields of area. Now, the side imaging is a tricky thing to get used to. You're not going to meter fish on it when you're fishing in 250 to 300 feet of water, but you will meter rock, hard bottom, relief, and things like that. So, while I am driving this course, as I see things off to the side of the boat, I will turn on them and go and investigate what's going on there. Hey, what is this large rock or whatever I'm meeting off to the side? But basically, as you can see here, I'm following a zigzag pattern along the most productive edge. And that allows me, because I don't know where those fish are going to be. There's no particular rock I'm looking for. I think there might be a ton of rocks in there, but I don't have any way to know where those are. So I'm going over and I'm covering water on my most productive, what I believe to be the most productive spot. I'm not going way out deep because it doesn't matter. I can only fish 360 feet. So it doesn't matter if I see huge schools of fish in 500. They don't do me any good because they're not on anything I can relate to. And I'm also not going too shallow because along with these steep drop-offs come hard bottom. The steeper the drop-off, the harder the bottom is, because sand drops off very slowly, whereas rock can drop off almost straight down like a cliff face. So judging by how quickly this drops off, and you can tell by how close the contour lines are to one another, it's a very sharp drop-off, which tells me that it's very hard bottom. And then hard bottom may go back a mile, but most likely it only goes back a few hundred yards. And those few hundred yards are the most likely to hold fish anyway, because the fish are not going to be a mile from their food source. They're going to be as close to, they want to, as soon as that bait comes up, they want to be there to eat it. And let me back up. The bait fish want to be where the nutrients are being pushed up by the upwelling, and the fish are going to be where the bait fish are to eat that. So as I'm driving through my course here, I get into less dramatic bottom contour. And my line's not exactly perfect. I'd probably be out on this edge a little bit more. But once I get into this kind of not so exciting area, I can take bigger swipes because I'm really probably not going to be missing anything. If I start marking fish here, I'll go back to a pattern like this to get into cover every inch of it. Now, as I'm going, I'm not stopping on everything either. As I'm marking stuff, I'm hitting waypoints and trying to put together an idea of what this area looks like. So once I get past that, I will go back to this high spot, but I'm not going to cover all this water in here because if they're not here, they're not going to be here, and they're probably not going to be here. So I'll just go and then really tightly zigzag over any pinnacle that I find to see if I can cover that water effectively. As I'm prospecting, rather than dropping on the first spot I come to, if I mark some structure, and a lot of times I'm not really looking for big fish schools here. I'm looking for bait schools and schools of fish I don't really want to catch. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put together a mental picture of what I'm seeing. All right, people are asking me some questions. It's okay. I'm trying to put together a mental picture of what this bottom looks like, and I'm throwing waypoints in there to mark, okay, here's some hard bottom, here's where it ends, here's a rock, here's things like that. Once I have a better idea of that, I'll stop and then I'll go back and I'll really break it down. I'll say, okay, well, I'm going to pull up on this rock and I'm going to make it drop and see if I catch anything. And in the meantime, I'm turning the boat and using my side vision to see if there's any rocks associated with that. I can jump to the next one, jump to the next one. That's how you would break down any type of bank. And when you're breaking down these banks, the key is always going to be to look for the areas that have the highest percentage of, or the most likely to have bait fish delivered to them. And those areas are most likely to have fish. Now, the further back you go, there's plenty of rocks, there's plenty of everything all over. I know this area pretty well. There's tons of stuff in this area here that doesn't really show a lot. But if you just go and try and look for that the first time out, you're not going to find those spots. So what I'll do on any given rockfish trip is I will spend the first hour going to spots that I know and seeing if I can catch some fish. And usually I will get a handful of fish or whatever. Not, it's usually just me and my partner Matt on the boat. So we're only allowed, 20 fish for the day, unless, we don't really keep whitefish and other things like that. So it seems kind of pointless to pull up to the first spot, catch 20 fish, and go home an hour later. So what we'll do is we'll hit some of our spots, and then we'll spend every single trip I take, I'll spend 2 or 3 hours prospecting for new spots. And it's a very good use of your time. So, you catch, a couple fish a piece, spend the next few hours driving around prospecting, and then come back and finish out your limit, or you might get a limit of a completely new spot. This process applies on any bank you're fishing, be it at an island or anywhere from Point Conception to, below the Mexican border, the 9 Mile bank, deep water spots, anywhere along the coast. You need to figure out where the bait's going to be, where the fish that are going to be eating that bait are going to be. And once you figure that out, then you can go and figure out how to find other associated spots that are going to be maybe a small spot that's too small for sport boats to hit. We're going to catch giant, big fish off. And we catch a lot of big fish, and none of them are on spots that are much bigger than the boat. It's just finding that tiny little rock or that little patch of hard bottom that's too small for other people to bother with, and that's how you're going to catch those fish. Now, while fishing islands that have big banks is the same as fishing banks along the coast, a lot of times islands, be it, any of them, any of the Channel Islands, San Clemente, Santa Barbara, Coronado Islands, there are spots there very close to the island because they have a quick drop off that are going to be producing fish, but not in the same way that big bank would. Now, as you can see here, the mackerel bank off of the front side of Clemente, if this is kind of a deeper spot than we'd be fishing, but this would be fished as the bank if it were, like let's say the 14 Mile bank before they put into closure, or Cherry Banks or any of the Osborne or any of those. This bank is way too deep to fish legally. But if you get up to the island, there's plenty of small areas there's thousands of small areas that you can fish, but all you have to do is figure out where those spots are. I've isolated the few that stick out to me right off the bat. I have not spent a lot of time fishing all these spots, but I can tell you that if I went to San Clemente Island, one look at the chart tells me it's stuff I want to look at. And the first one up here is this area that's outside of the 9 fathom spot. This canyon cut that comes in here mid-island, this front side east end one, and then obviously the area around the Desperation Reef. These are areas where there's very hard bottom, and that associates with pinnacles and other things. That's the biggest difference with fishing islands, is that you're going to be fishing rocky, pinnacle-y area, which fishes very differently than banks do. So whereas in the Santa Monica Bay, we had a huge bank that had small areas, or, let me back up a second here if I know how to do this. So we had this big area here that had the ability, any of this area could hold these fish because it's all a good area, and we're trying to find the area where the fish will be because the bait will be. When you get to San Clemente Island, these fish can be associating with particular structure. And this is a close-up of the area below Desperation Reef, which is at the bottom here, and then there's a lot of stuff on the closer to the island here. If I zoom in, or I select the area I'm going to look at, so islands drop off very fast, and a lot of times the mistake people make when they're looking ahead of time before going out on their chart or whatever is they'll find the most amazing looking structure. Like this stuff here looks amazing to me. I would love that little point coming out. I guarantee there's good rock cod there, but that's in almost 600 feet of water, and it's illegal to fish. As is these great looking pinnacles, which is in 126 feet of water, where you're likely to catch just as many bass as you are rockfish. So it's not ideal either. So basically, when I fish a place like San Clemente or up at the Channel Islands, I try and concentrate on a certain depth range. So here, basically, I'm looking between 200 and 360 feet so that I can only spend my time looking at water that's, first of all, legal to fish, and second of all, not too shallow so you get a bunch of other junk. And one of the things I learned last year, I spent some time fishing rockfish at Santa Barbara Island, and that's in the Cowcod Conservation Area, so you can only fish up to 120 feet. And there's a lot of spots that look great, but you okay, so if anybody that's just joining, if you have a question, go to the Q&A button and type in your question, and I'll address it immediately, or oh boy, I'm really messed up here, or I'll answer it at the end. Okay, now my computer is having an issue here with yeah, that's funny, Jerry Porter. My PowerPoint seems to have frozen up here for a second, so bear with me. I'm assuming that everybody's seeing what I'm seeing still, because I can see myself. So basically what I'm looking at right now is a close-up of the area off Desperation Reef. What the heck is going on? Bear with me, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why my, oh boy, we got big problems. All right, so apparently my PowerPoint has frozen up, so we are going to be sitting here for 1 second. Sorry about this, guys. Okay. It's always something. I'm going to I don't know what to do. Oh, there we go. It's finally working again. Here we go. Let me stop and restart my PowerPoint, and it should be good. There we go. All right. So bear with me, everyone. Sorry about this. I'm trying to get everything working again. All right. Yeah, like I said, it's my first time doing this, and I'm not batting 1,000 here yet, but we'll get it going. So stand by. I guess that's what you get for running a 2008 PowerPoint presentation without updating it. It's loading. It says it's loading. I don't know if it is or not. Yes, thank you, Gary. I am a complete rookie. Bear with me. I'm trying to fill my time here. I don't have a lot to talk about, so I'm trying to fill everything up. All right, here we go. Starting slideshow. Oh, shoot. I got to share it first. It's horrible here. Sorry. All right, here we go. Slideshow. Jump ahead. Okay, like I said, so I'm choosing an area that I'm going to focus on to get in the right depth range here to maximize my time. So the area that I highlighted here, what I did is I zoomed in on it, and there's quite a bit of structure here. You can see this high relief area. This is pinnacles. This is all pinnacles here, and these are pinnacles and things as well. So you can spend a day. There's enough stuff here. You can spend an entire day just looking at this little section, which looks like some kind of weird tornado or thought bubble. I'm not sure what it is, but whereas I would do zigzag pattern when fishing a bank to make sure and cover all the edges that may or may not have fish. I can very closely isolate what I'm looking at here, in the areas that I'm highlighted in red are definitely the most high percentage areas for me on this bank. You know, they may not be the best place for a sport boat to go and catch limits, but these are the areas where if there's a big fish, it's likely to be. You can see you have very, very steep drop-offs, you know, and I've got a lot of, one of the problems at this part of Clemente is if you're not careful, you get a lot of salmon grouper, and you know, I know Matt loves taking those home and stinking up the rest of our fillets with them, but I don't want them at all. So once you get away from any of these pinnacles themselves, you start finding those clouds of fish, that's gonna be straight salmon grouper, which for me, I don't really have the time or the interest in going through. So I'll read what I wrote here. Series of pinnacles, rather than drive around the bank looking for fish, I'll focus my efforts around the high spots and ridges. While there may be fish in the water between those spots, it's a lower percentage zone and not worth the waste of prospect. No, exactly. So if you go there and you pull up on one of these pinnacles and you load up on some fish, rather than sit there and catch your limit right away, you might look around and see, hey, there's a little pinnacle that's not on this chart. And what's nice about Navionics is while I'm doing this, I'll be recording sonar charts. And what that means is whatever my fish finder picks up, it's recording depth data and it's adjusting it. And then what will happen is at the end of the trip, you know, I will upload my recordings to the Navionics website. And by the time I'm ready to go out the next week, I can download an updated thing that will have my modifications to this chart on there. And this is a crowdsourced thing. So the cool thing about it is the more people that use this chart and record their own sonar logs, the more updated everybody's charts will be. And it's not like it shows the waypoints that you save or anything like that, but this detail you see here, if I were to spend a week or a weekend driving back and forth through there and recording sonar charts, it's going to be even more detailed. It's going to show more small spots. It's going to show all that. And while that information is good for me because I can associate stuff to it, it's not necessarily going to tell somebody where I caught fish. And that's a big fear of me. Well, if I go out and do that, everybody's going to know where I got them. No, there's, you know, thousands and thousands of acres of area that it's all going to look better. So you're going to have waypoints on your machine that's going to associate with these spots. So now we know what we're looking for on the chart. What are we looking for on the water? This is a picture of us up north of Santa Barbara Island, or Santa Barbara Harbor fishing rockfish. It's Eric Noguchi with a nice leg and Matt did a good gap job, all little red stuff on her. So as I mentioned before, the tighter the contour lines, the steeper the drop-off. This was at Santa Barbara Island. I wasn't actually fishing, so you can have those waypoints. They're illegal. I was trying to test out some stuff and take some photos. So this is me fishing below, or not fishing, but just driving below the depth I'm allowed to fish. You can see that we had a pretty spaced out thing here, and then there's a sharp drop. And you can see this drop here goes from just over 100 feet to almost 250 feet in a very short distance. The bottom associated with that is going to be very hard to drop off that quickly. While this didn't really, you can see the shelves on it as it's dropping off, and that associates with this little shoulder that's coming out here. That just shows you how detailed these charts are. You know, I'm driving along this thing, and I'm actually marking this little edge as I'm going. It's got, it's almost like step. I guarantee you there's fish to catch along there that we're not marking, but that's a nice hard bottom, and that's what you're looking for. And as I'm zigzagging around banks, I'm trying to stay on bottom that's pretty hard. If I go to the next slide here, this is taken a few moments later as I turned back around. Now, as I turned around, I have a bait school that's right here. This is not fish that I want to catch. There may be fish I want to catch mixed in with that, but this is the bait school I'm marking. And a lot of times the mistake that we make is that we go and look for these giant marks that, you know, we associate, you know, like with, I mean, I remember when I was much younger, we used to fish cherry banks and stuff. We drive around and we'd meet with just these giant you know, 60 or 80 foot high marks off the bottom in 500 or 600 feet of water where these fish would climb 100 hooks sometimes. And while that's great for a sport boat, or if you're, you know, fishing a 100 hook commercial game in the old days, we're not looking for that with a skip, because, you know, of those, you know, if you were to drop a 50 hook gang on a big spot and you catch 50 fish, maybe 10 of those fish are fish you actually want to catch, and the other 40 are going to be smaller fish. You'll take them because you catch 50, but if you're only allowed to keep 10 fish, I don't want to waste it with salmon grouper or small bank perch or weird stuff like that. So what I'm going to try and do is put myself in a position where if I get a bite, it's going to be by a bigger fish, and I can limit out on quality fish. And I'm going to show you a video in a second here. It's not my video, but it shows you that a lot of times the stuff you mark is not necessarily the stuff you want. Now this is a good example of a spot. This is also at Santa Barbara Island, also 18 feet over legal. But again, I was just driving around that edge looking for stuff to take pictures of. What you have here is a rock. So you can tell how hard the bottom is by the amount of return you get. So here we have this kind of broken, you can see my pointer, this kind of broken light color thing with some blue in there. That means it's a fairly soft bottom. That it's not so much the red you're looking for, but the echo underneath it. And when it's real hard, it'll be almost red underneath. So what happens here, we go from this fairly soft bottom, it's probably shale or something, it's not completely soft. But then we go to this area here that's got a rock, and it's much harder. You can see this is more solid here. And this red stuff above it is not the rock itself. That's just a hard return on a tight concentration of bait or fish, most likely bait. And then we have some bait above it. And this little fuzz that you get just about anywhere. When you're in a rockfish zone, variations in that fuzz, if it goes from fuzz to red like that, that means that something is different and it's worth a look. But the fish we're going to catch here are, that we want to catch, we're not going to be marking anyway. We may, I've had times where I've been in clean water and with just hard bottoms area with no bait, and I've marked reds and things like that, that mark a lot like bass do. There'll be worms on the bottom. You know, once you get past 200 feet of water, though, a lot of times it gets hard to differentiate that. A lot of times there's bait associated with it as well. So we're looking for structure. We're not looking for fish necessarily. If there's good structure, there's going to be a fish associated with it. And I'm going to stop this share for a minute. I'm going to show you guys a quick video. This is not my video. Hold on one second. Bear with me. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this. Okay, so this is a video that there's this guy up north, Nathan Perry, who posts these videos on Bloody Decks, and he has this very elaborate camera sled that he'll drop down into very deep water with lights, and he'll film what rockfish are doing on these rocks and reefs and banks. This is a little compilation video that he filmed off Santa Barbara recently. I'm going to just play a small amount of it here, so just watch what's happening here. So as you can see, we have lingcod, we have reds, and these things are very tight to these rocks. Up above, we have Johnny bass, blue bass, things like that. These are the fish that are swimming up higher that you're marking that you don't necessarily want to catch. See, you can watch how these reds and stuff are acting. And we're getting to a spot here where there's a big group of reds. Here we go. There's bait fish, there's reds. These are very tight to the bottom. You're not going to really see the relief of these things on your fish finder. I mean, you're in 250 feet of water. These things are 2 feet off the bottom. It's very unlikely that you would actually see them on your fish finder. And if you do, the fish you're actually marking are going to be Johnny bass, blue bass, egg perch, the sheephead. You can see how active these lingcod are as well. You assume that these are fish that just sit on one spot. And I understand that the light is having an effect on how these fish act. But if you watch right here, these fish are using the light to actually feed on these bait fish. And they are hanging around the rocks. I mean, there's pictures of reds actually sitting on rocks at times. But you see all that bait down there too. That's what these things are feeding on. That bait is using, or it may be juvenile rockfish for all we know. But here you can see, so we have a mix of reds and blue bass, but the blue bass are mostly higher above that. Same with picachio, bank perch, a lot of different fish that you're not, the bigger quality fish you want are going to be near the bottom. You can see a chucklehead at the bottom of the screen there, very low. These are juvenile rockfish, and that's what those reds were actually feeding on, like half bands or something. But you can see how tight they are to the structure. And they're eating a lot of the plankton and stuff that you see floating around in that photo. So here we have suspended fish. You got lingcod and chuckleheads very close to the bottom. Some reds are suspended, but most of the fish you get up higher, like that olive rockfish, or Johnny bass, or a blue bass. So I think you guys get the picture here with that. Hold on, let me stop that. All right, let me get back to this. All right, so getting back to my presentation here. So tackle and presentations, and there's that lingcod that Matt and Eric just caught, and a free promo for Diver Reels apparently. I use 3 basic presentations. I'm trying to figure out how to bring my window to the front. Can you guys see this? Resume share. Okay, hold on a second here, guys. I messed up a second. So let me go to stop share. Oops. Oops. All right, bear with me. Okay, oh boy, back to the beginning. Here we go. Let's scroll through this real quick. Sorry about this. Okay, so when it comes to actually fishing for rockfish, this is the easiest part of all. If they're down there and they're feeding, you're going to catch them. I fish 3 ways basically. I fish live bait, I fish jigs, and I fish swim baits. If I'm fishing live bait, I try and use either baits or presentations that will allow me to isolate bigger fish. In our local waters, squid, live squid, fresh dead squid are absolutely the best ways to catch rockfish. Problem is, everything eats them. So when I'm fishing squid, as you can see in this photo, I'm using a fairly large treble hook. And this is probably a size 2.0 treble hook. It's about this, maybe just a little bit smaller than you get on like a Teddy 45. And I'm doing a single spider hitch that's probably 18 inches to 2 feet long above a torpedo sinker. This big hook means you get a lot of bites and you're getting your bait picked off quite a bit. But what it also means is you're not going to catch these tiny whitefish and 6-inch rockfish and things like this. You get a big red or a big brown or a nice sheephead like this or a ling, they're going to hoover that thing and you're going to get a very good hookup ratio because there's 3 hooks rather than 1. You want to use a very, I think I use like a 4X hook or 3X, I'm not sure exactly. You can see it in the picture. I've used lighter wire treble hooks and had them straightened out repeatedly on big sheephead recently. And, so if you're fishing bait, if you're fishing mackerel or you're, sardines, you can use a circle hook. I'll use a lighter wire circle hook, not super light, but something that's a little bit thinner. And if I'm fishing mackerel or a sand dab, I'll do a trap hook. And what I do is I'll do a small dropper loop above the end of my line. Instead of I'll do a reverse sinker rig with that. So I'll do a dropper loop above the hook or a spider hitch above the hook with a sinker hanging off it. And I'll have an 18 or 20-inch leader. And about 8 inches from the end of that leader, I'll do a small dropper loop with a treble hook or a J hook in it. And then I'll tie a treble hook to the end of that. And I'll put the J hook through the nose of the sand dab or mackerel and the treble hook through the tail section, which gives you a trap hook rig. It's a very simple way of doing it. You play around with it. It's not a real big dropper loop. It's just a tiny loop. Or you can do a perfection loop with a really long tag end for your J hook and then just tie the treble hook to the end so you can hook it on like that. I'm not going to bore you with the details of bait fishing. If you get into an area and you mark fish dropping down, if they're there, they're going to bite it. If you can get good squid can make a big difference, especially on the coast. Really good fresh dead or live will make such a huge difference. I've gone to areas where I've got garbage for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'll get a take of live squid, and I'll go up there and it's just straight big red. So the fish care about bait. There's also areas that I won't even fish unless I have either live squid or very fresh dead squid. Jigs. If you're fishing at an island or anywhere north of Ventura, all you need is a jig or swim bait. The one in the picture there, that's a Savage Gear squish jig. And in a minute here, as soon as I'm show you the next thing, I'm going to show you some actual examples. Basically, everything I'm trying to fish everything on bass gear. I'm fishing 360 feet of water or less, and I'll rarely fish that deep. I try to fish 300 or less. I'm fishing a Revo Beast 60, full of 65 pound if I'm fishing in 200 feet of water or less, and I got a couple that have 50 pound on them, which has plenty of line to get me down in even 360 feet of water on a heavy bass rod. You know, if I'm fishing a mackerel or something, or a big sand dab, I'll fish a jig stick if you need it. But I like having a light level line, and it's a lot more fun to catch these fish on bass gear. You know, we've been getting sheephead to real close to 30 pounds on light bass gear is pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's the biggest fish you'll catch here at the tuna aren't bite. You know, I mean, it's bigger than the yellowtail you catch. I mean, it's pretty fun to catch these things. You don't land them all. But so jigs and swim baits is the next thing. I'm going to get off the sharing here for a second and actually show you guys some of the jigs I'm fishing. Now, this may not go well. I'm already dropping stuff. So, basically, in the old days, tangled, sorry, in the old days, jigs were considered something like this. This is a ahi assault jig. It's pretty beat up, as you can see from this. This is like one of my favorite deeper water jigs. I think this thing is 12 ounces. It's just a lead jig. They tend to bend. This one's bent a little bit, and they tend to go back and hook the line. But this on like a light jig stick will get, I mean, lings, reds, you name it, in water up to 360 feet. If I'm fishing shallow, I won't fish this big a jig. Another big jig that I'll fish is the classic knife jig. It's Shimano makes ones they call butterfly jigs, different things like that. Trying to get it in here. This has got the double assist hook as opposed to the treble hook. The nice thing about having some of these bigger ones is if you run out of sinkers, you can just take the hooks off and use it as your sinker, as Matt and I have done a few times, except some of them get big bites and they don't get hooked up, and you'll come back and you got scratches on your jig where they bit that instead of the bait. Yeah, just drop it down to the bottom, bounce it, wind it up real fast, 10 or 20 turns, drop it back down. Pretty standard thing. As you go a little shallower, you know, 200-foot range to, you know, I would say 250 feet or less, you have a lot more options with lighter jigs and even lighter gear. This is a Daiwa something 120-gram jig that Jerry gave me. We were fishing them up at up north. This thing is an absolute killer. And these jigs, you think you would hook them like, tie them on like this so that the hook is at the bottom. You don't want to do that. You actually want to tie your line to the top. There's a solid ring at the top of these things. This one's tied wrong, probably that. You tie that on so that when you're fighting the fish, you're just fighting directly to the hook, and the jig swinging around as opposed to having the jig in between the hook and that, which can cause you to lose fish. That picture I had earlier, this is a Savage Gear squish jig. I love these things. I won a box of them at a CCA event, and these are my new favorite. These things, they have a really good erratic action when they're sinking. And basically, I'll fish this or any of these. And, you know, let me show you a couple more. This is the Shimano Colt Sniper. Great jig at Santa Barbara Island. It's shallow. You don't need anything more than that. And then you have like a Shimano Flat Fall, which is a great jig too. But the thing I don't like about it, ow, yeah, took myself. There you go. They're very snaggy. I just proved that with my finger. If I'm fishing a lot of structure, I won't fish this jig because the hooks are on the bottom, and they're very likely to get stuck in the rocks. Whereas you have hooks up here, these hooks here are very likely to get stuck. These up here are not, because they're going to be falling. whatever. But this has a little better hookup ratio. So all these jigs, I am dropping them down, hitting the bottom, coming up a couple turns because I don't want to snag them, jigging it, winding it up real fast, throwing it back at freeze pool. You don't need to come up 100 feet out the bottom because you're just going to catch Johnny bass and blue rockfish and stuff. You know, find the depth range that works for you and then just work it. But a lot of guys just want to drop it down and then sit there jigging like this. That's a very non-productive way of fishing. You might catch fish like that, but you're going for a reaction strike. They're looking for fast-moving things. As you saw in that video with those reds, you know, the light came on, the red caught that one little rockfish out of the corner, it snapped on it. Didn't even look at it. It just went and ate what was there for it. The same hole is true when you're fishing swim baits. A lot of guys that fish swim baits, they want to drop down to the bottom and hop along and drag it on the bottom. Yeah, you'll catch fish doing that, but it's pretty dark down there, and those fish are really keyed in on sound and movement. So they're looking for things that are moving quickly, which shows that there's some kind of predation. You know, you're watching all those bait fish or those little rockfish that swim around all slow. They're swimming there, the reds are swimming next to them. You bring that light in, the bait fish start to scatter, and the red immediately hits one. They're looking, it was just a predatory thing that happened. So when I'm fishing a swim bait, I'm going to drop it down, but I'm not going to drag it on the bottom real slow. I'm going to burn it up 20 or 30 turns, drop it in freeze pool, and it's going to be going like this as it goes. You want a head that's heavy enough to get you down, but you don't want something that's so heavy that it's just going to rock up to the bottom and just get stuck. So this is a Blade Runner head. I think it's a 3-ounce head called the depth charge. And I've got a little one of Corey's MC 6-inch swimmer baits cut down. It's something I used on another thing, and I just cut the end off and stuck it on there because it fit well. Color is not a big deal. You know, Matt likes to fish real bright colors, and last time I went to Santa Barbara, we were using a bright green head with a red and orange body. It looked horrible, but I mean, the fish were on it. So it's just something they could see, and they were reacting to it. This is not as big of a bait as a lot of guys think you would fish to try and catch rockfish, but I've caught big lanes, big reds, everything on really small baits. This is about a 5-inch bait here. I've caught on 4-inch baits. So you just want something that they can come by and swoop up like they did that small rockfish in the video. If you're looking to catch bigger fish or lingcod, or if there's a lot of current, I'll go to a slug on a lead head. This is the MC 8-inch slug. I think this is a 3 or 4-ounce lead head. And this is fished the same way I would fish a swim bait, except it has no movement at all. There's no tail kick. There's no nothing. It just falls and gets jerked up and falls. And the advantage of using this bait in those situations is it gets to the bottom faster, so there's no tail to slow it down. So this tail that offers a lot of resistance. It's going to cause it to flutter and sink slower. This is going to sink like a rock. But to make it look like something they're going to want to bite, you're going to have to impart action into it, which is going to mean jerking it up and letting it go down. And I'll fish the same way I'll fish sand bass with something like this. I'll let it hit the bottom, wind as fast as I can for 10 or 15 turns, and then drop it in freeze pool and let it sink on slack line. Jerk it a couple times, set it down, wind as fast as I can. The fish are they're not looking at this and saying, oh, that's food. They're catching movement out of the corner of their eye, and they're hitting it. If you have a ton of current, you can also fish this slug on a drop shot. We had good success doing that, and we were up out of Santa Barbara one day. The current was it must have been going 5 miles an hour, it seemed like. I mean, it was like a river. I had to keep the boat in reverse to keep us even slow enough to even get a bait to the bottom. But Matt rigged up a drop shot rig with a big Siwash hook and a 16-ounce sinker, and rigged one of these slugs on her just like you would a plastic worm coming straight off it. I don't think there was one drop where he even made it to the bottom without getting a big red or chucklehead or a lingcod. So these types of baits, they don't look all that exciting, but they'll get a lot of bites in situations like that. And by fishing reaction bites, you're going to rule out a lot of the small whitefish, this bank perch, the nonsense you really don't want. What you have to be careful if you're in an area that's got a lot of Johnny bass or blue bass, like we saw in that video, those fish are going to be higher. So if you get your bait too high, you're immediately going to catch one. So if you get into an area where you're dropping down and you're catching those fish, you're going to need to restrict the range of your bait movement to try and not catch them. But anyway, real quick here, I'm going to take some questions here in a moment. But before I do, I want to let everybody know that Pacific Coast Sport Fishing Magazine was nice enough to give me 3 gift certificates for a year's subscription to the magazine. And BD Outdoors was gracious enough to give a choice of a shirt or hat in whatever size to a couple of people. So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to look at all the people that were online, and I'm going to randomly draw 5 people, and I am going to email them and let them know what they want and get their address and mail them this, or have them go on to BD Outdoors website and decide on which hat or shirt they want and what size, and then we'll get that sent out to them. And I'll be doing that in each webinar I'm doing this year. I'm going to be doing 3 different ones. So I've got time here left that I can answer some questions. I have John Lamb asking me, hold on one second. Okay, John, you have a very interesting question here. How do private boaters that are new to private boating get around to finding out resources on how to figure out where to go and what to do? If you go to bdoutdoors.com, and you look on the front page under columns, you can look up my name. I've got over 300 different articles on there covering everything imaginable. You can scroll through all of them and get information. The BD Outdoors website is a very good opportunity to get a lot of information from people. And fishdope.com, which is their sister company, has a lot of up-to-date information. That's a paid service that you would go to. And obviously, if you have if you got a plotter on your boat, you're going to want to get the Navionics region software. This is the stuff that I'm showing all this stuff from. And you can go to the Navionics website and click on their free web app, and you can play around with it and take a look at some of the other stuff. I'm getting a question about what colors are best for rockfish with jigs and swim baits. With jigs, I tend to like brighter colors like a mackerel color or a blue and silver. This color here with a lot of blue. It's something that's got some flash. There's limited light down there, but whatever light there is, these fish are very adept at gathering it. This Cold Sniper's got a shiny thing. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with glow in the dark jigs, and I don't recommend them. But all my jigs have something shiny in them, and it's hard to see in this lighting, but they all have a very chromy, reflective thing. When it comes to swim baits, I try and match natural-looking forage. This bait right here looks a lot like those little half bands that the Reds were feeding on in that video. It's got it's very natural color. You can't go wrong with reds and browns when fishing rockfish with these. With the slug, I like greens and browns because those imitate either sardines or mackerel in shallower water, or different, even I've caught Lincoln and lizardfish in the past, and these represent that pretty well. I wouldn't say that's exactly what we're trying to do. I always recommend drifting over a spot when you're starting out, because I have a trolling motor on my boat that allows me to do a spot lock, and that is very key when fishing a small area, and it's basically a virtual anchor. So I can stop, put the trolling motor, and it'll hold me within 5 feet there. Given certain conditions, I can sit there and catch fish for an hour or two. In other situations, I can drift over a spot, have wide open fishing, go back, and put the spot lock trolling motor and catch 1 or 2 fish and then nothing. So a lot of times it's the movement of the baits over the reef or whatever that attracts these bites. It varies day by day. As far as a manual anchor, I would never use it. If you have a boat that doesn't have a trolling motor, or you can do what I did up in Santa Barbara recently, is I'll put the stern of my boat into the wind, and I will fish from the console with the motor set straight back, and I will bump the boat into reverse. That will slow my drift down and give me a longer time over the area. And if you figure out, you can watch your speed on your GPS, and if you time it right, you can almost hold your exact position just by backing your boat into the swell, which is a very productive way of doing it. Hi, Chris Smith. Yeah, I had a feeling that that question was coming, and I'm not going to answer it, but thanks for posting. We're going to be doing a calico bass seminar next, and in April, and then I'm going to be doing an offshore seminar in June. There may be a I have a question about a yellowtail seminar that may be forthcoming here. I'm hoping I got to everybody's questions. I don't know how to scroll through this, so bear with me. Oh, there we go. Thanks for everybody that's saying that I did a good job. Yeah, absolutely. I have an avionics chip that's 3 years old and worth paying for the update already. It's absolutely worth signing up for their thing, simply due to the fact that you can update your chip daily every time you go out by recording your sonar logs, and that is a really good way of staying on top of things. And you know, if you get the update and you subscribe to it, you're not only gonna get the stuff that you record, you're gonna get the stuff I record. Everybody, it's a crowdsourced thing. So the more of us that are doing it, the more detailed our maps are gonna be. I have a question here about using scent. I will use scent on swimbaits. I don't use scent on jigs. I don't always use scent on swimbaits, but I have, and I've had good results with it. So, you know, uni butter's a good scent, hot sauce, and it's going to get them to hold on to it a little longer, give you a little more reaction time. Regarding seeing rocks on the bottom of 250 to 300 feet of water, yes, if you have a good chirp sonar, you absolutely can. If it's a pinnacle or a pronounced rock. A lot of times, I'm just looking for changes in the hardness of the bottom, which is the stuff that's below the red line. The denser it is, the harder the bottom. So you don't have to have relief for it to be hard. Yes, I think that you'll get automatically notified by email for future webinars. You can just go on the Navionics, follow Navionics on Facebook. I'll be always posting stuff about it. I'm getting a question about the best rockfish spot for Clemente. You know, there's a lot of great spots. Go look around, find some stuff that's in the right depth range. The spots that get hit hardest are the east end and the west end of the island. There's a lot of miles of good water between there. Go find it. You'll find, I mean, there's no shortage of good stuff. Yeah. If I don't have access to squid, I would always use jigs or swim baits over fin bait if I'm fishing at an island or anywhere north of Ventura. If I'm fishing from Ventura through the Mexican border, I'm gonna take some fin bait. It may not be great, but you know, or I won't go. South of the border, jigs and swim baits again. So the fish, it's not so. I have a question about what's a good fish finder for deep water. It's not really the fish finder you're worried about so much as the transducer you have. I installed a through-hole chirp transducer on my fish finder that is far above the standard puck one that comes off the back of the boat, and it makes a huge difference. I can run my boat at 40 miles an hour and be able to get a clean reading of the bottom at 500 feet of water. I've been driving past the east end of Catalina at 35 miles an hour and said, oh, hey, there's a rock in 320 feet. They marked it in my GPS. So all the fish finders are great. Raymarine's got some great products, but you want to invest in a good through hole transducer if you're serious about it. I know it sucks to cut a hole in the bottom of your boat, but you're gonna get a much better picture. The side scan and the down scan at depth, the Lowrance one you mentioned, the Raymarine I have, it works good. I don't use the down scan when fishing rockfish. I prefer the standard chirp transducer, but the side scan or side vision works incredibly. I was down at the 9 Mile Bank last year, and I had it up to 600 feet on each side, and I marked a big rock, way out of the edge, and you could scroll out, put a waypoint out there, and I drove to that spot. I'm like, I must have marked it wrong. It just seemed so far away, but I got out there, and the rock was there, and we caught some fish on it. So I have gone over my hour. I want to thank everybody for attending today, and I really appreciate y'all being here, and definitely look forward to my next webinar, and have a great night.